Going to break, we said that there were 7 victims killed at the Covenant School. We want to be exceedingly clear here. There were 6 Christians who were victims of that shooting and 1 murderer. And the Biden administration is now facing backlash over the White House press secretary's comments saying that the transgender community is under attack.
We're seeing more and more of these hateful bills. People don't want their freedoms to be taken. They want us to fight for their freedoms. And so it is shameful, it is disturbing, and our hearts go out to the trans community as they are under attack right now. But this is a president who has said many times before he has their backs.
Yeah, you know, the audacity of the White House to choose this as their moment to make that statement is really something, Emily. You know, as I mentioned going to break, there are 6 victims. There were protesters, however, at the Tennessee Capitol who were putting up 7 fingers and saying 7 victims. There are 6.
That's right, but we will never get that acknowledgement from this White House or this administration. Karine Jean-Pierre says, you know, we want to fight for people's freedoms. Yeah, we want you to fight for our freedoms, for Christian freedoms, for every American's freedoms. That's the purpose of those bills, by the way. It is to increase and protect freedom from this overbearing, overreaching government under Biden's watch. It has nothing to do with anti or hate, no matter what kind of sound bites they try to craft for their small-minded, narrative crafting brains. It is mind-boggling to me that the mainstream media immediately accused the governor there and the state leadership in Tennessee of sharing burdens and sharing responsibility for this evil, brutal persecution of 6 Christians, that this is being touted as a Christian persecution complex rather than Christian religious persecution, which apparently only exists outside of this country. It's like we talked about yesterday. If someone has left-wing views, then it's the right wing's policies that are to blame whenever there is something like this murder. But to those people who are lifting up 7 fingers and to Karine Jean-Pierre, they are absolutely missing the point, to the detriment of millions of Christians here in this country that are now find themselves at the end of a target. It is horrifying.
Kennedy, I don't know how chyrons in the vetting process works over at MSNBC, but let this sink in because these are the words they put on their screen. Transgender shooting suspect sparks outrage on the right. Shouldn't a shooter of 3 children, 3 adults, spark outrage on the left as well?
We should all be outraged. We should be outraged that someone like this targeted children. You know, it's like, just because there were 3 victims and there weren't 19, it doesn't make it any less tragic. And how upside down are we in this country? How backwards are we in this country when we're not thinking of those families? We're not thinking of those children and the horror and what they went through and those incredibly brave police officers, you know, who didn't stand outside. They went right inside. It didn't matter if it was a woman with a gun. It was a murderous person that they sent to hell because of their bravery. And I don't think the fact that she was trans has anything to do with this. I think, you know, the fact that she's a woman is much more interesting because we don't see that happen. But it just goes to show you there is no box that sociopathy fits in where people find it so easy to just take human life.
Yeah.
And we have to think about it. And it's okay, like the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, yes, that's when you talk about the victims in the gay community that was directly targeted in a mass shooting. And that was horrific. Think about the kids here. Think about the Christian children and their families. They are the victims here.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's well said. You know, Bill, I'm interested in Marsha Blackburn and Bill Hagerty's proposal they put forward, which was $900 million to go to schools to allow them to hire retired law enforcement. Marsha Blackburn, though, put up this yesterday. Earlier this week, I spoke to Joe Biden after the senseless tragedy in Nashville, and I introduced legislation to provide $900 million for school safety. It is clear this White House has no interest in protecting our kids. They just want to make this about politics. Why is the White House so immovable on the issue of hardening our schools?
Listen, there are hundreds of millions of guns in this country, and there are hundreds of millions of people. And it's an interesting idea. It was grant money for any school that wanted to hire a resource officer at on their campus. She's right. It's going nowhere under this administration. Here's what I keep coming back to. I'll make this quick and clean. This happened on Monday. On Monday afternoon, we were told by the police in Nashville that there was a ton of evidence that was left behind as to why she acted the way she did. Well, it's Friday afternoon, and we have seen very little of that evidence. And I would just ask why.
Yeah.
Where's the manifesto? Why have we not been told about what is there?
Martha?
It is disturbing that we haven't been told what's in the manifesto. This appears to be a targeted attack. We've heard it was a targeted attack at a Christian school of these 6 innocent individuals. They are the victims in this story. This is not about whatever led this killer to take the lives of these people. It has never been about that in our history. Now we're sort of at this point where we're kind of going, yes, but what led to it? Why did the person feel this way? Yeah, maybe those are things that you need to examine for one reason, to keep other people alive. And if there were situations where this person should have been detected by their family, were their eyes open enough? Do they share any of the larger blame of not reaching out to them and saying, look, what is going on? Should we be making sure that you have the right medicine, that you do not have a weapon? Because those laws are already on the books in Tennessee. If you are, they call it mentally deficient, you can say whatever you like about that term, but the reason for the term is that if anyone in your life can prove that you're a danger to yourself or others, they can make it impossible for you, or nearly impossible for you, to go into and legally buy a gun. Those laws exist at the federal level and in Tennessee. That's what people should be yelling about. Her background, it's about these children, and it's about this killer who took their lives.
Yeah, and one of those children tonight, a celebration of life for little Evelyn Dickhouse. We think of these families this weekend, and just remember, you will see them again. These children, as Greg Laurie said, are in your future, not in your past.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.